This is a short video to review some of the characters we have seen in the seedless vascular plants. This group includes the Lycophytes and the Ferns, the Polypodiophyta, but it doesn't include the seed plants. So this is a paraphyletic group. It has a common ancestor and just some of the descendants of that common ancestor. We're not including the descendant lineages that lead us to the seed plant. So this is a paraphyletic group. Para, like parallel. All vascular plants, which obviously include the seedless vascular plants, have special cells with a secondary cell wall composed in part of lignin, which is a really tough molecule. It gives the cells some rigidity and structure. So lignin is a new molecule that we see in our vascular plants. And also a new character, a derived character relative to the non-vascular plants, is the dominance of the sporophyte in the life cycle. So now we've got a sporophyte that is still initially dependent on the gametophyte, but then has its own free-living part of the life cycle. So relative to the gametophyte, the sporophyte is dominant and it's longer lived. Unlike what we'll see as we look at the seed plants going forward, the gametophyte in the seedless vascular plants still has physical independence from the sporophyte. We see eggs in Archegonia. This is a character that's ancestral to the land plants. We see swimming sperm. This is a character that is also ancestral to the land plants and even to the common ancestor shared between the land plants and the green algae. So we've got swimming sperm, which really restricts the range of both gametophytes and sporophytes. And like all land plants, the sporophyte, as I've already mentioned, grows on and develops on initially the gametophyte. So we've got this sporophyte-gametophyte connection. That's why we call the land plants the embryophytes. So here is the common ancestor between green algae and the land plants. Here's the common ancestor of all land plants. We've looked at these diverging lineages, the non-vascular plants, and now we're talking about these lineages, our seedless vascular plants. Let's review with some pictures. In the division Lycopodiophyta, we talked about microphyls with their single, unbranched vascular bundle, vascular tissue in each leaf. We talked about the presence of more than one apical meristem, so that we've got even branches, no one single dominant branch. We talked about the presence of sporangia on the sides of the stem rather than at the end of the stem. In the non-vascular plants, we have terminal sporangia. The sporangia are at the end of the stem of the plant. We have also really simple sporophytes in the non-vascular plants. Here in the seedless vascular plants, and going forward, we have lateral sporangia. So they're still associated here with a sporophyll. Here's our sporophyll. Here's the stem, and our sporangia are coming off the side of the stem. And these lateral sporangia might also be arranged in what we call a strobilus. So the strobilus is the last part of the stem, the end part of the stem, but it's not having the sporangia sitting on the end of the stem, like here where my pointer is, but they're just clustered here toward the end. So here's the stem, here are our microphylls with sporangia attached to the stem. We talked about the presence of heterospore in some lycophytes. I didn't tell you which ones, and that's okay. Introducing you to the idea of having multiple kinds of spores, two kinds of spores, which gives us two kinds of gametophytes. One of those gametophytes is the microgametophyte. It makes sperm. The other gametophyte is the megagametophyte. It makes the egg. And the lycophytes, we've got life cycles that still depend on swimming sperm. So both the gametophyte and the sporophyte are then still restricted to environments that are at least wet some of the time. Ecologically, we talked about the lycophytes being really prevalent during the Carboniferous period, about 360 million years ago. Now they occupy some of the forest understory, so they have lost their prominence among the land plants. Division Polypodiophyta are ferns and our fern allies. We've got megaphylls. You can see this leaf has gotten lots of sub-branches, so this whole thing is one leaf, and there are all these little sub-branches in here, so branching vascular tissue in our leaf. We've got just one apical meristem. These green parts are leaves coming off of this stem. The rhizome is an underground stem that's growing laterally. It's growing under the surface of the soil, straight across rather than down. It's growing laterally. So that's got one apical meristem extending its growth in one direction. This allows the plant to use its resources to get taller overall, or longer overall in this case. We again have lateral sporangium. We talked about the structure of the sporangium having a stalk, which we've seen before, this capsule that has the spores, and this new thing called the annulus, which dehydrates, pulls back. There's a lot of tension. It breaks open the sporangium, and it's back here with all this tension, and then it swings forward like a catapult and flings the spores out into the air. So a little bit of help dispersing the spores. And these sporangia are arranged in sori, or here's one picture of a single sorus, a cluster of sporangium. So this is the leaf, and we've got multiple sporangia hanging down underneath the leaf in this cluster. Here's one slide that I didn't get to in the other video. We do see some neat adaptations in spores in some of our fern allies, and this is an example in Equisetum. So these spores have elaters, which are these little, or rather long, filament-like cells that come off of the spore. And these cells, these elaters, respond to humidity. When the air is dry, they look like this. They're all spread out. And this gives the spore a lot of loft. It allows it to fly through the air, keep from falling out of the air. When the spore encounters humid air, the elaters contract, like these pictures up here towards the top. Okay, this gives the spore less loft, and it's more likely to fall out of the ground. So this is an adaptation that helps the spore be more likely to land in an area that is relatively moist, an area where the spore is going to be able to germinate, grow into a gametophyte, a place where fertilization is likely to be successful for those swimming sperm. So this elater allows the spore to be more likely to land in a relatively wet environment. It has more loft when the air is dry, less when the air is moist. And here's our life cycle of division Polypodiophyta. There we go. We've still got, where are we? Here we are. Motile sperm. We've still got sperm that need to swim. So even though the sporophyte, this mature large individual, has the ability to survive in dry environments, it has the ability to grow, to retain water, to move water through its body, it's still restricted to wet environments because initially it's attached to this gametophyte, and the only place where this gametophyte will be successful in fertilization that yields the sporophyte, the only place that's going to be successful is a place where the sperm can swim. So the gametophytes are still restricted to moist environments in order to complete fertilization. Since the sporophyte is initially attached to the gametophyte, the sporophytes are also restricted in their range. All right, so another outline. Characteristics of all of our vascular plants. In the seedless vascular plants, we have those characteristics as well as dispersal of individuals by spores. And we talked about some other special things like the annulus, like the elaters in Equisetum. When we get to the seed plants, we're going to see these vascular characteristics, but some differences, like dispersal will not be by spores, will have some new structure.